Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. Welcome back to our extended series of one of the modern world's most omnipresent public intellectuals, Jordan Peterson. In an earlier installment in the series, we explored Peterson's best-selling 2018 book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. Given how visceral the response to Peterson's book was, and the manner in which it catapulted him to the forefront of many discussions about psychology, masculinity, free speech, and political correctness, it was perhaps inevitable that a sequel would follow in relatively short order. And so it did, in 2021 with Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life, which is the subject of our video today. The idea for Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life was largely in gestation before Peterson ever wrote 12 Rules for Life, let alone considered a sequel. As Peterson explained back in 2018, the idea for his original 12 Rules book largely emerged from his interest in the Quora website, where users answer others' users' questions, and those answers are then voted up or down by readers to try and determine the best answer to questions from hundreds or even thousands of options. Many years ago, Peterson had answered a question on Quora by postulating that he had 42 rules for life. Just 12 of them made their way into Peterson's original book in 2018. So when the opportunity presented itself to produce a sequel of a further 12 of the remaining 30, were also written up into a second book. The result was Beyond Order, 12 More Rules for Life. Significantly, Peterson wrote this book in the midst of a personal crisis. In mid-2019, Peterson released news that his wife of many years, Tammy Roberts, had recently been diagnosed with kidney cancer. Her situation subsequently improved very greatly, but Peterson was so disturbed by her health problems that he began being prescribed increasingly high doses of the anti-anxiety medication clonazepam. This led to a severe chemical dependency for which Peterson had to seek extensive medical assistance thereafter, eventually making a full recovery, though not before a very turbulent period in medical centers in multiple different countries. Peterson's second set of 12 rules for life in Beyond Order are as follows. Rule number 1 is to not carelessly denigrate social institutions or creative achievement. In fact, Peterson goes further and suggests that one should look for individuals and institutions which have made creative advances in the world and look to them as role models for our own betterment and improvement as individuals. Rule number 2 is to imagine who you could be and then aim single-mindedly at that. Peterson argues in the vein of many modern-day self-help gurus here, in arguing that your mind is a very powerful tool which has the capacity to change your life for the better if you use it well. As such, he urges his readers to imagine their best selves and then actualize that imagined version of themselves in real life. Rule number 3 is to not hide unwanted things in the fog. Here, Peterson suggests that we hide away from many things in our life when we struggle, or go through tough times, or simply want to avoid challenging situations. He urges his readers not to hide things this way, in the fog, but to find your purpose and invest all of your energy in achieving it. Rule number 4 is to notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. This rule holds that often the things which we try to avoid or abdicate responsibility over are often the things which might actually bring us the greatest fulfillment if we went after them and acquired them in life. Consequently, Peterson urges us to embrace our responsibilities as they create meaning and purpose in life. Rule number 5. Do not do what you hate. This relates to our career decisions and should be reasonably self-explanatory. Most of us spend about 1/3 of our life working. It only makes sense then to try to enter a profession or acquire a job which you do not hate, and that, if at all possible, you can take tangible pride in working in and succeeding in. Rule number 6 is to very simply abandon ideology. Peterson warns here that the early 21st century is seeing a new drift towards ideological camps, or left and right politics and identity politics. The same kind of ideological camps which existed in the first half of the 20th century and caused such destruction. He maintains these are always destructive and reduce the liberties of those who espouse such ideologies. His advice is simple: avoid them. Rule number 7 is to work as hard as you possibly can on at least one thing and see what happens. Here, Peterson uses the example of a diamond to highlight the value of working hard and placing yourself under extreme circumstances to try to get a good result. A diamond was effectively once a piece of coal, which turned into a diamond as a result of being exposed to extreme temperature and other processes over time. Try to turn something you're doing into a diamond from a piece of coal and see what you learn from the experience. Rule number 8 is to try to make one room in your home as beautiful as possible. Peterson proposes here that having a room in your house which is aesthetically pleasing is not just something which is a boon to your mood, but having the example of something done well in front of us as a reminder on a day-to-day basis can act as an encouragement to try to replicate that process in other parts of our lives. Rule number 9 is that if old memories still upset you, write them down carefully and completely. The idea of this chapter is to try to find a way of moving past difficult memories and experiences by confronting them. Rule number 10 is to plan and work diligently to maintain the romance in your relationship. If you are married or in a relationship and that relationship is beginning to creak at the seams, then Peterson argues difficulties will follow in all other aspects of your life. Thus, he argues for the importance here of maintaining and nurturing your relationship. Rule number 11 is to not allow yourself to become resentful, deceitful, or arrogant. A little self-pity can be a very dangerous thing to oneself, or so it is said. With his 11th rule, Peterson argues the case for this and contends that if we tried to restrain our resentments and deceits, the world would be a much better place overall. And finally, rule number 12 is to be grateful in spite of your suffering. By this, Peterson means that each of us will invariably suffer in existence. Perhaps some to greater degrees than others, but no one can avoid suffering of some kinds in a life in which infinitely ends the same way for everyone. The greatest antidote to our suffering, Peterson holds in closing his book, is to be grateful for the other things in life despite your suffering. And with that sage advice, we'll bring to a close our video on Jordan Peterson's Beyond Order 12 More Rules for Life. Be sure to tune in to the next installment in this video series where the role of religion in Peterson's work and his own religious views